The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Hello everyone, welcome to Leadership Podcast. It is yet another edition of The Big Issue. And of course today we don't intend to take much of your time. As usual, our in-house analysts are here with me. And of course we are just poised to take on the big issue as usual. By my right, we have Chibuzo Okaibe.
Thank you.
And of course we have Tunde Oguntola with us.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome to this program.
Thank you very much.
And of course, the big issue for the day is the ban on open grazing, Southern governors, and the September 1 deadline. Well, today, September 1, 2021, is the deadline on the ban on open grazing in Southern Nigeria, agreed on by the 17 governors of the Southern state. About 11 states have failed to meet the September 1 deadline for the promulgation of the anti-grazing law. Only Abia, Ogun, Oyo, Ekiti, Rivers, and Ebonyi states are said to have signed the law, while others are either in the process or are yet to begin. 5 states, namely Anambra, Lagos, Imo, Edo, Cross River, have disregarded this agreement. Delta, Osun, Ondo, Bayelsa, Akwa Ibom, and Enugu are just working on the procedure of complying. The 17th state governor had in July, during their meeting in Lagos, set the deadline for the announcement, following in line with the announcement on May in Asaba that they have banned open grazing. Well, without wasting much time, Julie, what do you think about the attitude of the Southern government in keeping with the deadline set by themselves?
Well, obviously, during their meeting in May, I can say is one of the I would describe it as a historic meeting, where for the first time Southern governors will converge, not minding you from the west or from the east, to speak on one given matter that we want to end open grazing. However, this is coming on the heels that the effects of open grazing is enormous, as it has resulted to the loss of lives and property. It has led to clashes, killings in the country. And that's one of the major reasons why they said, no, we have to come together to put an end to this. Yes, while those 5 states are yet to, or perhaps when they disregard it, I think they are parts, or there's not typically a grazing route, or maybe for instance Lagos. How can you be a cattle animals husbandry and you said you'll be using your cows to pass through Lagos, where humans alone in the states have not seen space?
Are you saying that there's no cattle grazing in Lagos?
Well, I doubt that. Even though if there are, it will be maybe perhaps in the suburbs, not in Lagos. I think, and perhaps the effect of open grazing is not really felt in the state, and maybe Anambra, as well as Edo, they don't really have such effects where you see farmers and herders are clashing. How can you be saying you're an herder and you have AK-47 and you say you are using that AK-47 to play? Which kind of play is that? Are you using AK-47 to hear your cows and say you are playing? No, we can't say that. Such play can't be condoned by any reasonable or sensible person in the government. So please, I am of the part that animal husbandry should be seen as a private business. Government should give them this support. They should go by way of ranching to ensure that the animal gets the best and needed nutrients to even serve us better meal.
Okay, Chibuzo, some states have signed the law, while others are yet to do so. What does that tell about the commitment of the Southern governors towards the ban on open grazing?
Well, for states that are either yet to start or that are dragging or that are, or let me put it on governors, let me not put it on states, because they are the key actors in this whole episode. For governors who are still seem to be dragging on this, it behoves on them to come clearly and state their position, whether they are going ahead with it or not. You for an agreement that was reached by all of the governors, as of the time they arrived at this, not at the May meeting and the July arrangement, there was no time any of them, opposed position openly. They all agreed. So it was assumed that there was a consensus on this. So for any state governor now to appear to be dragging on this matter, it does not tell well of the governor as an individual. Because you can't be backtracking on something you willingly got yourself into. If at initio you were not part of this, you have a right also to say this is not what I want to be part of. But having agreed and submitted yourself to that kind of arrangement and that kind of consensus, it's only honorable that you follow through with it. Now, having said that, I think it's important to put some context to the impact that this open grazing thing is having and how much it has occupied public discourse. The back and forth about it. In this day and age, it is still interesting that we are still talking about open grazing, whether or not as a business or whether they should be allowed to roam around and all of that, when the rest of the world seem to be, going at jet speed. And here we are talking about whether to have a ranch arrangement or whether to still allow
The grazing routes.
cattle move around freely. I think it shows how low the consciousness of governance has become. It just shows how low. The other day we saw in the US and even in Britain, people flying into space, individuals sponsoring themselves into space, pushing the frontiers of human travel, private human travel. And here we are still talking about. So it shows you the quality it shows that the quality of discourse that we have been having over issues in Nigeria are so appalling and so uninspiring for a people who ought to be the giant of Africa. It is really, really appalling.
Well, apparently to beat deadline,
Yes.
the chairman of the Southern Governors Forum and Ondo State Governor, Rotimi Akeredolu, quickly signed the law banning open grazing, signed the bill into law. And of course, one would have expected that the other governors who are yet to do so, will follow suit immediately. But they did not. And then there is this suspicion that the ranks of these certain governors may have been broken over whether to go ahead with the implementation of the ban or not. What do you think?
Yes. It's a thing of honor. It's a thing of honor and a thing of guts. Because I cannot imagine how a governor would agree to something and at this time is beginning to dilly-dally about it. It calls to question not just the character, but the guts, the man in such governors. Even for those who are still saying, "Oh, we are trying to dot the T's and cross the I's." How long does it take to do that? It also puts question on them, because by now the deadline was for this law to have taken effect. So if at this stage they are still trying to dance around it and trying to romance the issue, then it puts to question the sincerity and the character of some of these governors. I'm sorry to sound a bit harsh, but these are things they willingly went into. And let us not forget that the whole idea of that um, declaration didn't just come out of the blues. Tunde gave a clear, background as to how we got to this point. It became a violent thing. People were being killed across states. And then it became an issue of, okay, we have tracked, at least we have been able to track where some of these things are coming from. And yes, we do agree that there are people who do this, people have been doing this open grazing arrangement for a long time. But it appears that they have been infiltrated. So why don't we stop this whole practice and come up with something that will ensure that everybody has a win-win situation? Now, whether or not the government has to run it as a business, allow business, people to run it as a private business or not, is a different matter. But because it is as different as it is equally important. But I'm trying to look at the dynamics of how this whole thing has played out with violence and all of the killings that have killed. So it is important that these governors realize the import of what they are doing, because there is a consensus down south about what has been happening with the herders and farmers, issue. So I think it will be in their interest to ensure that they keep to whatever agreement that has been that was reached in both meetings.
Well, Chibuzo, you're right. Because why the suspicion about breaking of the ranks of the southern governors stems from the fact that recently President Buhari had ordered a review of 368 grazing sites across 25 states in the country to determine the level of encroachment. And when the president gave that directive, questions were raised. Nigerians reacted. Why is the federal government so fixated about open grazing instead of ranching, which is a 21st century thing? And now, situating the attitude of the southern governors in the light of the president's directive recently, most Nigerians are thinking that within that time the president gave that directive, and now, especially today, the very deadline given by the governor, something would have gone under the waters. What do you think?
Well, the issue of grazing reserve is not new in Nigeria. It was earlier signed by northern governors, not now. But the fact is, after a time, when they engaged in the practice of open grazing, it leads to deforestation. The system whereby there were no grasses, the whole grasses got finished, and in fact, it's become a severe crisis, and they have to
grass
move.
is finishing.
Yes, they have to move down to the southern parts
during the Ramadan period.
of Nigeria. However, we all know how the terrain of northern Nigeria is. During Ramadan, everywhere gets dried up,
Of course.
and people during that period need to go to the south. Okay, this is a government that's spending billions of naira on social investment program to aim at improving agriculture in the country, spending this huge sum of money given to farmers so as to ensure that the nation feeds itself. I think that's one of the priorities of this administration, owing to the fact billions of naira being spent. And now you're also encouraging open grazing. So all the money you are spending, giving to farmers for their investment, should be eaten up by cows. I think the government needs to be more sensible on this. While giving them this money, look at the cows roaming around the street. I can say vividly that almost all cows I've seen roaming around the street so far, they are well fed. Yes, I barely see a skinny cow. They are all well fed. On what now? Most people, once they see Fulani in their farms, they run away. What about the basic nutrients needed? Even though, yes, they are looking well fed, most of these grasses being eaten by these cows does not really digest well. According to health experts, they said it leads to cancer and some other health defects on humans who consume cows that have been openly grazed. So it's high time we have to understand that this is a private business. It should be treated as such. Yes, The way you are supporting the farmers, support the herders as well. Let them do this in line with how it's done across the world.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, today you made me not becoming afraid of eating livestock like beef and goat meat, because you see these grasses, they don't digest well. Then some of them may cause cancer.
Sure.
Anyway, the truth of the matter is that something has to be done about this. And of course, that is why the southern governors welcomed the ban. But the situation here is that when the president's directive came on the review of those grazing sites across 25 states, we know that the northern states have just 19 states. But even some governors of the north, they objected to it.
Exactly.
And now, if you check, in states like Imo, they have not even done anything. Even the state assembly, I'm sure they have not done anything about the process of making it legislative on the ban on open grazing. Of course, you saw what happened. Was it last week or within the weekend or when? When, I don't know how they did it, but on social media we saw a copy of this day, the front page. And on that front page, the lead story was that the state governor, Hope Uzodinma, has actually, I think there was a particular amount he said he will give out to those, that is, girls who want to, there are people who want to get married to Fulanis, the Imo girls getting married to Fulanis. But at the end of the day, one would have said, those kind of things would have come from a situation where they would have looked at the governor as an APC governor who is a Buhari to federal government. And then he's now encouraging the coexistence between the Fulanis and the people of the state in that area. That is what things like that are the things that are raising this kind of suspicion.
Well, the management of this day quickly.
Yes, of course. No, that is what
the statement that it's a
clone copy. I didn't say that story is true. It was on the social media and it was a Photoshop.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to let you know the extent to which Nigerians,
some
Nigerians are looking at this kind of situation. And don't be surprised that some of these southern governors may compromise and then begin to rally with the federal government when it has to do with this open grazing and the rest.
If I may add, if I may chip in, it is not impossible. I say that advisedly though, because we are approaching an election season. And if you watch, most of the governors are either scheming to become, either vice presidents or scheming to be presidential candidates. In the PDP, of course, most of them are scheming one way or the other. And in the APC, where the party is seem more intent on zoning down south. They are also positioning. So most of them are becoming cautious and more trying to be more politically correct. And that is where, like I said earlier, the question of character comes in. If you have agreed to that kind of arena, and don't forget, this whole thing isn't just a case of the governor saying no to open grazing. Southern governor saying no to open grazing. We have also had, Southern and Middle Belt leaders make the same position. We have also had the Arewa Consultative Forum make the same position. We've also had the Northern governors make the same position, against open grazing. So it's interesting that anybody or any of the governors who have gone into this arrangement and now wants to backtrack on this, it tells so much about the person's character.
Okay, well, let's just quickly take a short break and do some announcement. We'll be back shortly.
The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
All right, welcome back. This is Leadership Podcast, and of course, it is the big issue. And the big issue of the day is ban on open grazing, Southern governors, and the September 1 deadline. So as we were talking, Chukwuzo, Benue State Governor and some other Northern governors, we are among those who strongly kick against the move of this review of grazing sites. At the end of the day, if you check, you discover that apart from the Southern governors, there are some Northern governors too who are not really disposed to this open grazing of the thing. See, Niger and Katsina State have closed all the cattle markets in their state. Specifically, Katsina, which is the home state of the president, have banned movement of cattle across the state. Is this not an indication that the cattle rearing matter is a security threat nationwide?
Well, indeed, it is a security threat nationwide. Because if you look at lives that have been cut short, we can openly say is that the issue is a security threat. You understand? When Katsina State government banned, they also banned that the use of Okada. That once 3 people are seen on the Okada,
then they have to be treated as bandits.
yes. So all these are security concerns. Before now, before now, everybody is living in peace and harmony. In fact, with the Fulanis, in Benue State, I understand that there are some thieves that are married to Fulani. A friend do call Fulani his in-law because they are married. They coexisted together, living in peace and harmony. But when politics enter the whole scenario, when you are encouraging people from other parts, arming them, giving them ammunition to go and kill others, buying weapons to defend yourself has become the order of the day, then it becomes a security threat. Look at the Fulani child, for instance. It deserves basic education. It is its fundamental human rights. But what do? You can see a 5-year-old boy roaming around the street with cow. Ask a Fulani boy now, who is even maybe 10 years old, who is Allah? I watched a video where he said Allah is there doing his own, her name is here doing his own. That said that he doesn't even have a religion. All he does every day is to move his cattle across to get the next feed for his cow. So all these issues have, over the years, turned to a security threat. Let the Fulani be well educated. Instead of giving them money and encouraging them, creating more over 300 grazing routes for them, please educate them, take them to school. They can do better. How much is the whole cattle business compared to the security threat it's causing in Nigeria?
Well, why I'm saying all this is because now it is not only a thing of the southern part of the country, but if you see some of the measures taken by some of these northern governments, I spoke of Katsina and Niger, even in Zamfara, they banned the sale of petrol in this. They have closed filling stations.
All the areas like Jibia and Katsina, you cannot buy more than 5 liters.
That shows you that the idea of cattle rearing itself, which has to do with open grazing, is actually contributing to insecurity in the country. So if these northern governments will be taking these measures, that means they are no different from their southern counterparts who are insisting on insisting on banning open grazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, like I said earlier, the Governors Forum, I even forgot to include the Governors Forum. The Governors Forum, the Northern Governors, the Southern Governors, Southern and Middle Belt leaders,
Like the forums.
Arewa Consultative Forum, and I think the Northern Elders Forum as well, because I saw the National Security, their spokesman the other day on channels, where he reiterated that point. You know, they've all spoken against, in this day and age, they've all said, no, that's not the way to go. Open grazing is not moving cattle from one part of the country to the other part of the country. It's not the way to go anymore. That is archaic. It's ancient. These are modern times. People are thinking of how to use a lot more in innovation and technology in learning this thing. Okay, I've forgotten the stats, but there was a time, the stats on countries with the highest level of cattle production came up. Nigeria was not even there. And so it's so mind-boggling that
Of what value?
for goodness sake, this day and age we are still discussing this issue.
The issue of open
Issue of open grazing or not open grazing, how people will beat cows around and move them from one part of the country
blocking
to
the
the
road.
other part of
Sometimes
the
you'll be
country.
driving, you but
For
you
goodness
just
sake.
make it cars. You have to wait
That
for
in
cars to
itself,
pass.
that in
Cause
itself,
unnecessary traffic.
that in itself is even worrisome. Not to talk of the security dimension that has been attached to this. And yet we have the government still pushing for bringing a gazette to ensure that these grazing routes still continue. Come on, man.
I think it's even just funny because at the end of the day, you discover that apart from the southern governors, the northern governors who are not too comfortable. Though they are on their own case, it has to do with the insecurity. Look at Katsina now. Katsina has banned interstate movement of cows. Like now, these cattle, you can't take them out of Katsina, you can't bring them into Katsina. What does that tell you? That means even the president's own home state. That means the president's cow too cannot be moved for business.
But he has the other. We've seen pictures of him, meeting his, attending to his cows.
Yeah.
And I think from what I saw, maybe I might be wrong, but from what the pictures we saw them in a confined space, properly, guarded and stuff. So if he understands that, then why would he still want to push for open grazing? The other time we also heard about how he made funds available to the Katsina State government for grazing as well, for ranching.
Right.
So it's I don't know. It's the extent that we have discussed and deliberated on this issue is, for me, really worrisome. Really, really worrisome. We have dragged on this issue needlessly for so long that it begins to beg the question as to what is it that is so special about this, moving cows, this archaic system of moving cows from one part of the country to the other and back. The case has been made over and again. It doesn't help even the cows. It doesn't help even the headsmen.
The headsman.
It doesn't help anybody.
Herdsmen that cannot speak English,
It
that
doesn't
is
help
not
anybody.
educated.
Why?
Why?
So why should we continue to beat this issue?
All you understand is cow must feed on your farm.
And you can even imagine that in a state like Niger State now, what Niger did was that cattle movement must be documented, which is a measure to control insecurity associated with the cattle business. And now to show you that for instance, the southern governors, why when they started this idea of banning open grazing, it had to do with herders clashing with farmers, killing certain persons. And then the northern now the northern governors are taking this measure to control movement of cattle and the rest. What now happened to these herders who are supposed to expected that when the ban on open grazing takes effect in the southern part of the country, they'll start moving down to the northern part of the country.
This is another dimension to why
Because we just have to think of what happened to those herders. We can't just say they are not useful in the society.
exactly. See, it's about planning and it's about having a clear idea of how you want to. It's about a safety net. It has to be a safety net to ensure that when you put these people out of what they normally do, there's something else they can do. It is not impossible for government to sit down and draft some plan or some form of program or regime that would encourage and keep them in a certain confined place and ensure that they equally get the basics that they need to survive and fend for themselves. It is not impossible to do that. It is not beyond government to do that even. Even if private businessmen can do that, then what about government? So that for me is not even, it's for me the list of the problems that this government can put forward as to why they are still insisting on this open grazing thing. That is the most important and basic thing is having the will and having a clear notion on why this should end. One would have been more worried if the cry and the who and cry over this issue was mainly from the southern governors. I would be much more worried because it will therefore paint a picture of a total balkanization of the country. But it is comforting, sad as it is, that across the north and the south, there is a consensus among key stakeholders on why open grazing should stop. So it at that level is comforting. So it shows the nation is not totally balkanized along lines of this issue.
Ethnic line.
You understand? So it is quite comforting at that level, and so it is really really interesting that the Meetiala continues to push this narrative and continue to. The other day, I read a report of the national secretary, calling the whole thing satanic, using certain caustic expressions, satanic, and at a point, he even threatened that there will not be the governors who do that will not get the support of their people, from the south and all of that. And come on, this is just how do I put it now? But he's entitled to his opinion, but it shows you that the government needs to step up. The government needs to step up, listen to every side, and take a position that is economically viable for the country on the one hand, and much more critical to the safety and protection of Nigerians. Because if state governors, not just down south, but up north, are beginning to take certain drastic measures, then I think federal government, should begin to rethink this position of keeping the grazing routes open, and begin to rethink how this whole process should be approached.
Well, Tunde, what happens to the elders now in the south, now that the law is beginning to take effect? Are there measures put in place to make sure that they leave the region peacefully? And if they leave the region peacefully, what is the way forward? Because they too are very useful to the economically. Without these headers, the meat business will be very expensive in the country.
Yes, I must say the freedom of movement is guaranteed in the 1999 Constitution and should be adhered to. But I think there are some exceptions in that because they have been banned. If they can ban open grazing in Katsina and Zamfara, that means there's limitation. Your freedom now is not your freedom of movement is restricted.
With cattle.
You understand? It's restricted. Just like why the Niger State governor said each cow must be properly documented. Well, how will you document a cow of a Fulani illiterate? Someone who is not schooled from primary school, no primary education, no secondary education, no university, no proper place. Even if the cow is documented, where will you place it while roaming around the streets? Okay, meanwhile,
not even about the Fulani being an illiterate. In Nigeria, do we even have a very effective data collection system?
So besides that, now we are also worried. There is a popular adage that said in Hausa, and I will repeat it in English. Said, which simply means if the beards of your neighbor is on fire, you should put water on your own so that you will not be affected. The elders in the southern region should be worried. Governors should be worried. The citizens also should be worried because this is a challenge. It's a very challenge. Okay, now they banned open grazing. We said we should not move. Where will they return to? Okay, the local Fulani elders from Katsina State, where will they take their cow to? Are they taking it to Katsina or Zamfara? This call for proper documentation. However, there's is on record or is not properly documented that President Muhammad Buhari is the patron of Metis Allah, although no document to show that. However, it should come out straight and ensure that there is a lasting solution to end farmers herders crisis and stop the killing and insecurity in the country?
Well, that is the much we can take for today's big issue. And of course, I would like to thank our in-house analysts for doing a very good job on the issue of the ban on open grazing, the September 1 deadline. Thank you, Chibuzo.
Thank you, sir.
Tunde.
Thank you very much.
Well, it was a nice time being with you and you watching us out there. And of course, I hope you had a very wonderful time on the big issue. Once again, my name is George Agba, your regular host. Join us same time tomorrow for another edition of this program. Now, have a nice day.